seems to work really well for everybody.
What's the plan of attack? Do we have 2 meetings in October, 2 in November, 3 in November, 3
I
in
think,
December?
I think let's start and schedule 2, and then we can see where we go from there. Last year, we were able to get it done in 2. So do we want to schedule the first one for Monday, October 18th, or Monday, October 25th? We could do the 25th. Let's do Monday, October 25th.
So how are you coming with the prep? The 25th?
So is that enough time? Okay. And then you'll provide it to us prior to?
Yeah, I should have something too.
And then let's schedule a second one for Monday, November 8th. And then we can see where we need to go from there. Both these meetings at 7 p.m. Is that good? Quickly, before we move on to old business, I had approached the other board members and some of the staff today with an idea about switching up the agenda a little bit. We hear what the residents are saying when people are saying that sometimes it feels like things are rushed and you don't have enough time to think of a question, or you want to ask something but it's already voted on, moved on. We don't want to hold 2 meetings a month, but there are things that end up on our agenda that don't need to necessarily be voted on that month. So starting next month, there's going to be a section of items that are discussion only. There will not be a vote taken on them. A lot of it's going to be developers agreements and things like that, just so that stuff doesn't fall through the cracks and is missed. But it will be a section of items, most likely at the beginning of the meeting, that will give us the opportunity to hear from our professionals, talk to each other, hear from the public. They will hang out there for a month and then will be voted on at the following month. Now, unfortunately, not everything can work like that because some things we have timelines or pressing and we have no choice. But if we have the ability to let it, kind of marinate for a month and let you guys as residents hear it and think about it and then bring to us any concerns or questions, I think that's a good way to move forward. So as the chairperson, I addressed that with other board members. They thought it was a good plan, so that's what we're going to do going forward starting next month.
Mr. Chair, I have 3 new business items, please, if I could bring up.
Sure.
One would be, just since we heard the gentleman mention that the HOA had its own Facebook page, I thought that the Facebook page was discussed being added here back after the website was up. So I'm just looking for that.
It was
To be here.
added. We'd have to redo it, right? Because we still haven't been able to get it out of Facebook purgatory. So we had one added and it got reported as fake, I guess, a fake page. And we have, up until now, been unable to, even Jack King has sent in his driver's license and we still don't believe that we're real. So maybe we can create another one, start again.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that was talked about January, February. The second I wanted to bring up for the board, just for discussion and give thought to, was, or Dawn, could you investigate the grant application that would be involving the slate dump removal or any of that process? I still believe that that should be something that we should address as a township after the education that we received before. Every time it rains, I see the rains running down the slate dumps and causing that. So I would ask, when is the investigation period for the grants, and can we submit for the grants for all of the slate dumps throughout Cecil Township?
The new slate dump is sold all except for one more signature. And it's not negotiating the price or anything. It's from getting the consent decree moved from Cecil to the person buying it all. And he is going to clean it up and develop it into a business park.
Well, I'm asking the board to consider the other slate dumps all throughout Cecil Township. I think it's time we address it and not just turn our back. We turned down $1.8 million for the cleanup, and I believe there is federal dollars out there, and we should be addressing it.
We didn't turn, Dan, do you have something you want to say? We did not turn down.
Just those grant applications, you have to have the land tied up to to obtain the grant, like in the case of when the township applied for the grant for the Muse project, they had a sales agreement that gave them some rights to do that. So what I might suggest is that we lease, all I would suggest is there's a gentleman from the DEP who handles that. Maybe we request that he come and meet with the township and understand what the process is to go to property owners, or they can do it, because they do a lot of work directly with property owners to help them clean up the property. So I don't think the township would get involved. We might be able to help them, direct them, or point us, give them to some. So that'd be my only point on the grant application. You'd have to have cooperation with the property owner to do that, and they can get grants on their own to clean that stuff up too.
Okay. Please, if the board would consider that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to, and I can speak for myself.
And the third thing, just the error on the side of communication with the public, or the settlement agreement and the release. Gretchen, are you able to address any of that to the public, or share with the public what that constitutes?
What's settlement agreement?
So, number 171, consider the amendment to the settlement
with
agreement
Walsh and
with
the
Walsh
Turnpike.
Construction and Turnpike. Could you give a summary?
Sure.
We'd skip that in discussion.
Sure, absolutely. So we filed a suit against them again for breach of the settlement agreement this time. We were before the Commonwealth Court. We had a status conference and the judge was going to schedule an injunction hearing. We came to terms on an amendment to the settlement agreement, which is basically going to give the township more defined notice, which there was a dispute on what notice meant. So there is now more defined notice, a commitment to the intermittent nature of the work, which I understand has been intermittent as of late. As well as, I think the most important thing that happened is we got agreement for the court to retain jurisdiction of the case for purposes of enforcement of the settlement, so that if there is an issue, we don't have to then file something new. We can just return to the court for purposes of enforcement of the settlement. So that's probably the best piece of this. It's going to streamline things moving forward.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So,
Anything else by any other board members?
Yes, I've been asked questions about the slide on Coomer Road. Dan, do you know where we're at? Anywhere putting this out to bid, or what our means of corrective action are?
Frank, what I would suggest on that is we give you, we put a little report together. We need to talk about that at your budget workshop, because that's going to be that and some other priorities. There's a landslide that needs addressed. So we'll get you a list of some capital projects. The Coomer is stable for now. That situation is stable for now, but I think in the long term, especially with the improvements that they're planning for McCall Trails, that might be an ideal time to address that whole intersection. So in your budget workshop, we'll be glad to come to a budget workshop, show you a couple of those capital projects and kind of understand those.
Why don't we do that at the first one?
Sure.
Maybe like 30 minutes or 45 minutes at the beginning of the first
That's
meeting.
perfect. I already put it in my calendar.
Where we can walk through capital projects.
Sure.
That's good. Anything else? Okay. Now we'll open the floor for citizens' general comments and questions. You can just step to the microphone. Go ahead. Go ahead, you can go to the microphone. Just state